You know what? I'll just say this. Is the grocery store gonna get mad at me if I complain about the carts not being returned?
Wait, what?
Like if I come on the podcast and complain about something or talk about something,
Yeah.
am I supposed to talk about no people, places, or things while I'm here?
Honey, you've got a big storm coming.
So how are you doing? What are you working on? How have you been? What you up to? I am not feeling very good today. I actually had to leave work yesterday because I pooped my pants.
They ask you how you are, and you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Hello everyone, how are you today? I hope that you're having a really good day so far. If you're new here, my name's Taylor. I live in Baltimore City, Maryland. Here on my YouTube channel, I feature content that is generally focused on knitting and spinning. I do like to dabble in many other subjects, but in today's episode of what I call the Thread to Mend podcast, where I generally sit down, I share with you the things that I'm currently working on, I thought I would talk about all of my shawls. We could talk about the different shapes, the things that I love, the ways that I wear them. Before we get into that, I thought I would give you an update on my natural dyeing experiment I mentioned last week, going on a walk and picking up some old, crusty, really ugly looking black walnut hulls. I meant to take a quick little video while I was out on that walk and I totally forgot, but I did end up boiling some black walnut hulls on the stove, and I overdyed the 2 skeins of spin cycle yarns that I had mentioned in last week's video. And these are the results. Here they look now, and you can see that they are much more muted. This one is very dark. This one came out, it was previously very, very, very bright. And so it's now just much more muted version of the same thing. So I'm really happy with the results of this little experiment. I did attempt to overdye many other skeins that did not come out quite as well as these 2 did. I think maybe because they are superwash, they pick up the dye like extra, like more than a natural processed, I don't know, fiber would. So really happy to have these in my stash. Thank you, Ellie, for sending these to me. And I was trying to pair them with a main color, something I had extra yardage in. But all the other things I kind of thought about were a little bit too cool toned for these very warm toned shades. And I just didn't feel like they really married each other all that well. So I kind of thought about doing a little handspun project, but then it just was too cool leaning. And then I picked up this random DK weight skein I have left over from my throw over project. It is DK, and this is sport. This is 200 yards per skein. I think it's interesting when brands don't document the weight of the skein, and nowhere on the labeling does it say how many grams or ounces this is, but I did measure them myself. I have this tiny little scale here, and I used to use a kitchen scale, something that was much more easy to put something as big as this onto. It will measure to the 0.1 gram. So you really get a good measure of how many grams you're working with. And these 2 skeins, this one measures 49.7 or 49.6, and this one measures 55.7. So there's about 10% difference in weight with these 2 skeins. Typically what I do when I'm combining different weights of yarn or different bases in general, I will take the total weight of the skein and I will divide the total yardage by the total weight to get a kind of general number in my head. And then I want to make sure that I want to make sure that the other yarns that I'm working with have about the same ratio or the same kind of like, I don't know if that's the grist or what that is. There's a technical term for what I'm referring to. I think that might be the definition of grist, but I don't know. I'm not an expert. I never claimed to be here. In fact, I'm just here online to tell you all about what I'm doing, and this is how I like to do things, and we're just having fun here.
This is what I do.
You can do whatever the you want to do. And I'm just having fun here.
I'm thinking about combining these, and one other thing that I do, so I'm not sure that these really measure up similarly in terms of that little equation of dividing the total yardage by the total weight. This is 250 yards and it is 100 grams. But I do find a bit more leeway when you're combining a lighter weight worsted spun yarn with a heavier weight woolen spun yarn, because there's this little extra test I do. I just call it like the pinch test, where I take a strand of the two yarns. Let me just get one of these here. And I'll kind of pinch them in between my fingers. And if they feel roughly the same, I feel like that's doable. Of course, you can never really rely on the yardage. You gotta make sure that you're gonna have enough. It could be a game of yarn chicken because you really never know exactly what you're playing with. But those are not that far off from one another. So I think that even though this is DK and this is sport and there's no like exact measure equating the two, I feel like they handle similarly enough that I think I can get away with it, which is crazy because I worked this DK weight yarn into a worsted weight pattern design, and now I'm talking about using the same base and incorporating it into a lighter weight design as well. So I'll have to do a little bit of a swatch, determine exactly what I want to knit these into. I think I have enough for a nice little cowl, but nothing more than that. I would certainly have to incorporate another skein of yarn before I have enough to knit a shawl, which would be preferred. I did have a couple other fingering weight skein alternatives I considered, but I thought that this would look very moody and just, you know, gorgeous. Haven't thought too much about it yet. It just came to mind this morning. So there's that. And then there were some other skeins I also dyed. And this is how minimal the results were. These cream skeins here, I have two, were pure white, like a creamy but very bright cream white. And you can see that they're much more muted, kind of a crew color. And these other two skeins, I was hoping I could just darken them up a little bit, and I'm not sure that they really had any consequence in the dye pot. They look very much the same, if anything, a little bit more kind of, I don't know, I mean, I really love this color. I feel like this color was maybe a little bit too warm, and now it's a little bit more green tone yellow, which I really like. It could be because it's right up against this green, I don't know, but this green felt a little bit more of like a blue tone green, like a very forest green, which is not typically a color I reach for. I love greens, but I don't love that bluish forest green. I like a more yellowy green. So I think that I might have accomplished that here. And then there was even more yarn I attempted to dye in this black walnut bath that I don't even have up here. Oh, I do. It's right here in front of my face. And this was actually a failure because I did the exact thing I warned y'all against last week, and that was I put a very dark red skein of yarn into a very hot bath of water with many other skeins of not so red yarn that are a lot more red than they were previously. You might be able to see here, maybe a little bit there, that red dye did bleed. So did I ruin some of these? I think I might have, but I'm going to do a second attempt at over dyeing all of these skeins of yarn to black. I'm just going to take out my acid dyes. I'm going to do a batch of black acid dye, and I'm going to see what I can get with that. And then I'll just have a nice little stash of some black yarn I could maybe throw in as a contrast color here or there and incorporate into future projects. Onto the shawls. I'm just gonna throw them beside me. We'll go through one at a time. This is the first shawl I think that I ever knit. This yarn was spun from a Jacob fleece that was machine carded to be completely blended, but it's very like multi-dimensional. It almost shines. It's very, very interesting, and I just love the lace to this. I think it's a really simple lace knit, and I really loved the process of making it and wearing it. Has a garter tab edge. The first shawl I think I've ever knit, I actually wrote into a pattern. I guess I'm a little extra. I don't know, maybe a little too much. But anyway, I did knit this shawl using my own hand spun. It's a Jacob fleece that was machine carded, so the coloring is very, very blended. It is a very consistent color expression of a multicolored fleece, and because of the multi-color fibers, it is kind of multi-dimensional in its sheen. It does look a little worse for wear because I did accidentally machine wash my hand spun shawl, which kind of freaked me out for a moment, but it really didn't totally misshapen the entire thing. So I do still wear it, and I like to wear it with the collar kind of folded over like a shawl collar, and I wear it closed with this gorgeous handcrafted Iron Age little shawl pin thing that I don't know if you call it a pin, shawl thing that I bought at the Maryland State Sheep and Wool Festival, which I'm so excited about already. It's in the first weekend of May and it's over in West Friendship, Maryland. So if you're planning to attend, I hope I get to see you there. If you hadn't yet thought about it, maybe you should. It's totally worth the trip. It's not at all like Rhinebeck. It's a lot more like a state fair without the rides, and lots of yarn and lots of sheep, tons of fleeces. The fleece barn is unlike any other I've ever been in. I cannot wait to go. Bless you. And I'm excited for that. I don't know. I'm already thinking a lot about it. So, yep, this is knit from the very bottom edge up towards the center top. You have to count your stitches multiple times to make sure you get off on the right foot, which can be daunting at first, but as you continue to work the project, you're so close to being finished. I feel like it's a lot easier to work a shawl of this shape, even though it seems that this type of shape is a lot less common to knit. But I'm very glad to have this in my wardrobe. I do like to wear it. It's called the Feral Shawl in my Ravelry store, if you're interested to know. But I just love the lace motif, and I love that it's lace but bulky weight yarn. And this yarn is just, I mean, can you see the drape? This is one of those projects that makes you fall in love with hand spun yarn because it's just special. There's really nothing like hand spun. Then the next shawl that I knit, and I actually might have knit this first now that I think about it. I can't tell. But I did knit this with my hand spun as well. I think hand spun is a great application for shawls. I think that shawls are a great application for your hand spun yarn because gauge is not all that important. You can have a little bit of thick, a little bit of thin, and no one is the wiser. And I just happen to have 3 skeins of 3 different colors from my fiber stash. These are all undyed yarns and natural wool. Oh, that's a lie. I did dye this one with black walnuts. So this was naturally dyed before I spun it. And this is Andrea Mallory's Golden Hours shawl. This is probably my most favorite shawl, maybe? I don't know. I did get a lot of wear out of it. You can probably tell. I don't know if it's visible or not on camera, but I did stain this shawl a green color. It's not intentional and it's not consistent. It's kind of like all over the place along the cream color mostly. Right around here you might be able to see it's kind of yellow looking. I'm not feeling good today, guys. You can tell my words are not coming out right, but I was hand washing a superwash garment with my hand spun shawl, which I will never do again. It was my mistake for being so dumb. I don't know why I play so fast and loose with these yarns, but I'm just, I think because I mostly work with undyed wool, I forget the dangers of dye, and I pretty much ruined this shawl with a skein of superwash. Anyway, I still wear it. I really don't care. Who's gonna say something? Nobody. And from a distance, how would you know? But I generally wear this shawl the way I just haphazardly wrapped it around me, with the center being at front. I turn it just to the side a little bit so it's a little asymmetrical, and I just wrap it around like that and kind of tuck it under. I think that this border is one of my favorite little borders of any shawl. I love the little bit of a lace moment between sections. There's that eyelet section and a bubble section and a slip stitch motif section. I think that this shawl is just very interesting. It's clearly handmade, and it's like cute, and it's tricolor, so you get to play with color a little bit, but you also get to keep it simple. It's also a worsted weight shawl. Mine might have been a little bit heavier than that, because this is some of my early spinning. But I think that this, although I can't believe I destroyed it the way I did. Very resilient fiber. I love to wear my hand spun, and that shawl was a great application of that. The other two shawls are both green. I love a green. And this is another Andrea Mowry pattern, and it's her range shawl. And this is the first time I knit an asymmetrical shaped shawl. So first it was the pie shawl, then it was a triangular shawl, and now I have an asymmetrical. So you kind of start with very few stitches, and as you go, you're increasing all the way, I think along one edge. So you kind of get that classic 90-degree angle at this corner, and then, it's not the same on each side. So this one, do I have the front facing? I don't know. I can never tell when the front is facing on this one. I think so, yeah. It's kind of a little bit more, unlike the golden hour, where there's clearly a front and clearly a back. This one is a little bit more obscure. Because it's textured stitches, you can kind of wear it reversed if you want to, which I really like, especially for this shape, because this shape is, I don't know, less predictable. So I kind of pick it up to hold the center corner along the front, and just like the other one, I cross it like that. And that is how I wear this one all of the time. You might want to know what this is made from. There are four different worsted weight farm yarns that I picked up over different periods. The first is from Good Karma Farm. It's a alpaca wool blend, and it has a slight variegation to it, so it's very multi-dimensional. The second color is my absolute favorite farm yarn ever found. I did buy this at the Maryland Sheep and Wool the New York State Sheep and Wool Festival. They are in the main barn to the left. I think they're very close. I forget what they're close to, and I can't remember. I think it's called Sunshine Daydream or something. They might have changed their name, but they have just one base of yarn, sometimes two. They're all like a heavier weight yarn. They're all hanging in these very open, loose skeins, and they're all naturally dyed with materials from their farm, and the fiber is grown on their farm. So it's like a one lady show. She makes everything she does. I don't think it's hand spun. I think it's machine spun, but it is just, there's nothing like this. I think it has a little bit of Angora. It's just lovely, lovely. This is another skein of Good Karma Farm. And then the last one, this bright yellow, which I think really matches or pairs well with the other shades, makes it more bright and interesting. This is a Sassari skein, which is milled out in Virginia. I think I picked that up at, there was a yarn store, it's still there, out in Roanoke, Virginia, that I visited several years ago. I picked up a skein there. So that's how I typically wear this shaped shawl. I meant to show you that the golden hour shawl, any triangular shawl, can be worn a lot of different ways. So you can wear it like I was just wearing it. But one thing I love about a triangular shawl is you can just throw it over your shoulders and you can kind of wear it just like loosely. You can fold over the collar if you want to. I like to generally fold my collars over inward. You kind of get like a little bit of a height along the neck. So it's really, really warm, but it's not showing the wrong side. So you can do that. And then I also will sometimes tie it behind me if I need to keep it like out of my way while I'm doing something. Like if I'm in the garden and I just need a shawl to keep me warm, I will tie it back so that it's hands-free. So there's that. I do feel like it's too loud of a shawl to really want to wear that way. I would prefer a more simple design to wear kind of cross front. So I did design this one. It's just a garter shawl. It's not, you know, anything spectacular, but it's exactly what I wanted. So I just ended up drafting the instructions for this garter tab triangular shawl. And this one I made extra big because I wanted a shawl of this nature to be able to wrap around any size person and be somewhat of a one size project, like most shawls are, but I wanted it to be, if I can wear it crossed around the front and tied behind my back, I wanted any person to be able to do that. So I made it really big, and this is the front. It has, I can't remember how many skeins I used. This is knit with Harrisville Designs watershed yarn, I want to say. Is that the heavier weight one? And I love this base, especially for a shawl, because it's so light, but you can make a really big garment and it's still not heavy. Like this shawl is much bigger than this shawl, and this shawl weighs a lot more because of the density of the fiber. There's so much air, not the fiber, but the density of the spin that makes the yarn. The yarn is probably a lighter fiber than this, like more medium kind of wool, but it's spun tightly. This has a lot of air in it, so it's very light. And I will most often wear this shawl in the same manner which I showed you previously, and you can see it's so long, it'll just kind of, the corners will hang, and I'll throw a coat on and it's just the perfect sort of shawl. But you can also wear it over your shoulders like the previous one. And this one is like really dramatically long. Like I will stand up for you to see. This is a very long shawl, and I will fold it in just like I mentioned, because it gives it a little bit of extra height around the neck, and it kind of holds up like more stiff. And then I will cross the front and just tie it loosely behind me, and I will wear it that way too, especially if I'm very cold or if I'm wearing a dress. I think it looks kind of cute, or if I'm wearing a lighter weight jacket and I need a little extra insulation, maybe I'll wear it like that. Or like I said, in the garden, I will wear my shawls in that manner. More recently, I've been working on a shawl by Stephen West, which is again a crescent shaped shawl. This one is from the top down, so you're increasing as you go. And of course I stopped mid-row, so I can't hold this up for you to see, but as you can tell, it's far more intricate than anything else I've knit so far. And I do find Stephen West's patterns to be mesmerizing, especially when you choose a color palette that suits you. I never truly feel deeply inspired by his color palette because it just is a fully different aesthetic than my own, but I appreciate it so much. And I find that his patterns, his shawl patterns are so intricate. There's something about simplicity and then boring. I don't know. It's I don't know what I'm trying to tell you. What is my point? What am I trying to say? I'm trying to say there's a time and a place for everything. Sometimes you just want a garter stitch shawl to work on. Sometimes you want something that is just so beautiful, you don't care what it takes to get it done. That's sort of what a Stephen West shawl is to me. I would say about half of the yarn in this project is all my hand spun. This main color is not, but the stripes you see in the background here and here, those are all my hand spun. There's two colors in this like 6-color project that are not hand spun yarn. So I would guess that like half of my shawls are knit with hand spun, which is kind of cool. And those are my shawls. I do have these 4 skeins of yarn that I'm thinking I will knit into a shawl one day. The one I have a label for, and I believe that this is the same mill. It's from Lopez Island, Washington. And I got this as a gift. It's 100% wool, and it is 4 ounces, 250 yards, so about a DK weight. And then I would guess that this labelless yarn, which I think is a long wool fiber, this is also about the same gauge. So I think that these would look really nice together. I just have not determined yet exactly how I plan to knit these. I think I'll do another triangular shaped shawl because I do seem to get the most wear out of that shape. I feel like it never really, when it's very long at least, it won't slip off my shoulders. Which shawl was it? I think there's some shawl that I wear. I don't know if it's this one or which one. There used to be a shawl I wore that would slip off my shoulders a lot. That is it for this week's episode of the Thread to Mend podcast. If you made it this far into this week's episode, let me know in a comment below with the sheep emoji, and that way I'll know you made it to the end. But if you want to follow me on social media, my name is Taylor E. Owen on Ravelry and Instagram. You can find me over on TikTok as Taylor Knits. Again, I want to thank you so much for being here. It means so much to me to see you all watching and commenting and participating in the live chat. So I want to wish you all a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and I hope that you all take care.